everybody. We're going to take a look here at Chapter 12, which is when we have what's known as monopolistic competition. So pure competition and pure monopoly are what we would call exceptions, not the rule, and most market structures are what is known as monopolistic competition. So we're going to go through what monopolistic competition is, what price and output, how it works in monopolistic competition, how it factors into efficiency and product variety. So monopolistic competition is what we characterize as a large number of sellers with differentiated products and easy entry and exit. The way we can compete without changing price are things like advertising. And why do we advertise? Because if we catch on, we become successful, it gives us more pricing power and it'll get rid of some of our competition. So let's think of a product like a very common product. For instance, we're going to go with any beverage industry, but we'll go with beer, let's say. Now, you may have been following the news. There was a whole controversy over Bud Light running advertisements, and it caused them to lose market share. So advertisements don't always work how you want them to. But the beer industry, there are many, many, many competitors. And it's really not that hard to enter it. You can build a brewery and become a beer company. It just takes money and the knowledge to know how to make beer. But there's really no barriers. If you have the money and a building and get some people who know how to brew beer, you can enter it. But how does all of these large brands maintain their market share? They run constant advertisements. Think of the Super Bowl and all the commercials that all these companies run. Products are differentiated. All beers are different. Bud Light is different than Corona, which is different than Modelo, and etc. And there's a large number of sellers. There's many, 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 many companies. And it's fairly easy to enter and exit the market. You're not forced to stay there. And once again, if you have the money and the ability to make beer, you can enter the market pretty easily. So advertising reigns supreme here. That's monopolistic competition. So four-firm concentration ratios are what is known as a measure of industry concentration. They are low in monopolistically competitive firms. And one of the cautions using these is they reflect national output numbers and they wouldn't be reflective of a local monopoly. The Herfindahl Index, that's a mouthful to pronounce. What does that mean? It's the sum of squared market shares. So we square the market share of all of these different companies and add them up. The lower it is, the more competitive, meaning we have very small market shares per individual firms. The higher it is, the more monopolistic. It is another measure of industry concentration, and it's the sum of the squared percentage of the market shares of all the firms in the industry. The lower it is, the lower the industry concentration. Something like jewelry is a very monopolistically competitive environment, whereas something like retail bakeries is just very competitive. So that's what those ratios are good for. The four largest firms, how much of the market do they command, and what's the Herfindahl Index? So this is just a selection of various things. So in monopolistic competition, demand is highly elastic because there are a lot of substitutes. You have a lot of rivals producing close substitutes. If Coca-Cola raised their price by a factor of 5, you could instantly substitute it. If Bud Light raised their price by a factor of 5, you can instantly substitute it. It may not be exactly the same thing, but there are a lot of rivals producing very similar products. It's less elastic than in pure competition, because the product is differentiated. Pure competition, something like sheets of plywood. There is no difference depending on whose brand you buy. Whereas you might prefer Coke to Pepsi, or someone of legal age might prefer Budweiser to Modelo or something like that. But there's no huge difference between them. However, they are differentiated. Pepsi does taste different than Coke. Doritos do taste different than Tostitos chips, for instance. So as a consequence, the products are different, but they're broadly similar. So since they're different, firms do have some control over price. You might be willing to pay a little more for Coca-Cola than Pepsi because you like it more. But if Coca-Cola goes to $10 a can, I don't really think very many people are going to continue to buy Coca-Cola. So that's monopolistic competition. And we'll take a look at what causes us to maximize profits in the next few slides. So demand's highly elastic, short run profit or loss, we're going to produce where marginal revenue equals marginal cost, and long run only a profit because we can enter or exit. So in our short run here, we're going to produce, once again, to the point, where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. So firms produce the quantity where marginal revenue equals marginal cost, just like other industries. It's possible to make a profit in the short run. Price minus average total cost times quantity is your economic profit. So going off our demand line, our price will be where we meet the demand line here. And here is where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. Here is average cost. So we are making a profit here. We are making a profit here. At profit maximizing output, price is higher than average total cost. And you get an economic profit in the short run. Average total cost red line. And our price is right here. So this space, we are getting a profit. And then depending on how much we make is our total profit, or that rectangle. But you may have a loss as well. So firms will produce the quantity where marginal revenue equals marginal cost to maximize profits or minimize losses. They're doing the same thing here, only in this case we're going to have a loss. Our price is below our average cost, and the red rectangle is showing a loss here. So at the profit maximizing or loss minimizing output, price is below average total cost, so we're going to get a loss. So you're not always guaranteed a profit, and if you're going to lose, you're going to lose the least amount, and that's what we're doing here. We're minimizing our losses. But in the long run, if we're losing, we're going to leave the market. That's what we're going to look at here. In the long run, firms still produce the quantity where marginal revenue equals marginal cost, and firms will enter the industry if you're going to make profits, shifting the demand left and causing profits to fall. In the long run, firms will exit the industry if they're losing. You're not going to stay in an industry that you're losing money, shifting demand to the right and causing losses to shrink, and this will continue until the price settles where it equals average total cost at the marginal revenue equals marginal cost output. And at this price, the monopolistically competitive firm earns a normal profit and we get equilibrium. So just like everything else, equilibrium will eventually be established in the long run, because firms losing money will leave and firms making money will stay. So monopolistic competition is inefficient. Your price is generally greater than the minimum average total cost, and that's a condition for productive inefficiency. Price being greater than marginal cost is a condition for allocative inefficiency. And you can also get excess capacity. So think of all of the soda companies or something like that. There's excess capacity in the industry, which means plant and equipment are being underutilized because firms are being producing below minimum average total cost output. So in this case, we wind up in a situation where it is not perfectly efficient. The only thing that's truly efficient is pure competition. Everything else is not perfectly efficient in an economic standpoint. And we can view that right here. So we can see the inefficiency in the long-run equilibrium. A monopolistic competitor achieves neither productive or allocative efficiency. Productive efficiency is not realized because production occurs where average total cost exceeds the minimum average total cost. Allocative efficiency is not achieved because product price exceeds the marginal cost. There is an underallocation of resources as well as an efficiency loss and excess capacity for every firm in the industry, and the excess capacity shown here, Q4 minus Q3. So we do get inefficient scenarios in monopolistic competition. So in monopolistic competition, firms can postpone the long-run output of just normal profits through product development, improvement, and advertising. Why do you advertise? To keep making profits and not be just breaking even. So compared with pure competition, this suggests possible advantages for the consumer. Development or improved products can provide the consumer with diversity of choices, and the product variety found in monopolistic competition helps compensate for its failure to be purely efficient. So even though it may not be purely efficient, every product isn't the same, and you get a wider array of products to choose from and better quality ones as well. Product differentiation is at the heart of the trade-off between choice and efficiency. The greater number of choices a consumer has, the greater the excess capacity problem. So if we look here, firms that are well run are going to manage their price, product, and advertising. So they're going to differentiate their product through advertising. Why does Coca-Cola run all these advertisements? To make them look better than their competitors. So they're going to advertise and they're going to say why we taste better, or make your brand out to be a lifestyle or something like that. And the consumer benefits by the greater array of choices and better products. Brands operating in this are constantly coming up with new products or improving existing ones. Think of how cell phones are always being improved, things like that. Types and styles, brands and quality, all of that, you're going to see companies launch new products to be able to keep whatever advantage they have and continue to make excess profits. Going to bring us to our last point here. Minimum wage changes generally favor large companies to smaller ones. So let's look in the lens of McDonald's. Minimum wage laws goes up, it's going to hurt my local hamburger stand a lot more than it's going to hurt McDonald's. Big chain restaurants are capital intensive. They have a lot of capital goods, a lot of technology. So what's going to happen if minimum wage goes way up? Number one, it's an economic fact that minimum wage increases lead to firings. It's not a morality class, this is just what happens. So as a consequence, if I am a little hamburger stand with just some simple kitchen equipment, I need a lot of people to cook everything, I'm going to get really harmed if minimum wage goes up. Whereas McDonald's, with all of their technology and their resources, they can fire half their employees and buy kiosks or automated machines to cook fries and burgers. And that's exactly what they're doing now. If you've been to a McDonald's recently, there's very few people working in the store anymore, and there's a lot of self-order things and technology cooking the food products. Whereas a mom and pop restaurant, those are very labor intensive, so an increase in minimum wage can put them out of business. And politicians and the public need to be more aware of this. Obviously, raising minimum wage is a very good thing in terms of intention, but a lot of times it may actually hurt the very small businesses that a lot of politicians want to help, whereas the giant corporations who can afford to buy any kind of technology are going to be a lot less hurt by them. McDonald's can fire a lot of people and replace them with expensive technologies because they can afford them, and those technologies will pay themselves off in the long run. Whereas my little hamburger stand, I might not be able to spend $1 million on automated equipment and everything like that. So that's just what I want to leave you on at the end of this chapter, and that is going to take us to the very end of our slideshow and the very end of this chapter.